Totally moot point now, but just imagine if this team had either contended or come close to contention, then wonder, which I'm going to do today out loud, how that might have affected the trajectory where this team's headed. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. The Penguins take on the Blue Jackets tonight at PPG Paints Arena. That's a 7:08 p.m. face-off. That looked like, even just a few days ago, it was going to be something significant, or maybe a little bit significant, and it's now not anything of the kind. But seeing how things have gone of late, and this really encompasses the last, whatever it's been, 3 or 4 weeks that the team's played better hockey, but especially since Tristan Jarry returned and has been mostly excellent. Not just like really good. He's been excellent with precious few exceptions. It's from there that I look at the standings and the wild card gap this morning and say, 2 or 3 additional wins early on in the season whenever everything was just imploding, notably the goaltending, but not limited to the goaltending, arguably beginning with the goaltending. And I think to myself that if the Penguins had just gotten league average goaltending, if Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, and then once he came up, Joel Blomqvist, were to have ranked as a group 15th or 16th in the league, not asking a whole lot, what would that have done for a team that scored at a reasonable pace, found its power play all over again, thanks in part, I'm sure, to David Quinn, gradually became less grotesque when it came to giving up odd man breaks and breakaways and other breakdowns, and then say that the Penguins would have been, 7th or 8, even a healthy 8th, meaning with some space between 8 and 9 in the conference, what impact would that have had on the way Kyle Dubas managed his roster, on the way he managed his salary cap, on the way he managed the acquisition of draft picks and guys in their early 20s or outright prospects? Because although most hypothetical exercises are a waste of time, this one I think might mean something in the sense that it could happen again next year. I don't know that anybody plausibly sees the Penguins as all of a sudden surging into contention in the 25-26 season to the extent that Dubas would feel comfortable or pressured or whatever to make moves at the deadline that would add. It would have to be, and I know this from talking to him, a convincing level of contention. It wouldn't just be, hey, we got on a little bit of a roll here, or hey, our goalies stole us some games even though we're getting, outshot and out everything every single night. It would have to be, wow, look at this team and its metrics across the board and its chemistry and its camaraderie and everything else. And all right, now it's time to turn the page. That's not going to happen next season. I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble here. It's not going to happen next season. But if it does, and if it did, the one thing that I like the most about the way this Dubas plan has been put together is that it feels flexible in this regard. Look at it this way. Look at the players that Dubas did move at this past deadline when he very plainly decided that this team wasn't going anywhere. He moved Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. That came first. Both were going to be unrestricted free agents. Both were going to be rentals. Both wound up getting, still to me, incredibly, a first-round pick from the Canucks. It's very fair to suggest that Dubas and management had made up their collective minds that those two players were not going to be part of the Penguins' longer-term future. So they moved 2 guys that they weren't going to keep for a first-round pick. And from there, without getting into, every single transaction, let's just use Anthony Beauvillier to Washington as, the model. If you're in contention, you keep Beauvillier, and you keep him through season's end, and you tell him, hey, we kind of liked what you did afterward, and if you want to hang around, we can pay you this much over a 2 or 3 year deal or whatever. If he decides to move on, you lose him, but you lose a guy that you brought into training camp on what was essentially a tryout. It's not bad asset management. It's almost as if Dubas has done this in a way where he puts both the A and the B options into place beforehand. So this season, for example, the Penguins go on some crazy, nutty streak beginning with Salt Lake City. Well, that actually happened. But let's say they were also good before that, or at least decent before that, and they weren't flat out catastrophic in October and November. Well, then you have all these draft picks, and not just low-level draft picks. The Penguins have 15 picks within the top 3 rounds of the next 3 drafts, more than any team in the NHL. You can get yourself players for that. You can do that without sending out somebody off your current roster. You can get your own rentals. Then, if and when it doesn't go well, first round elimination or whatever, you didn't really waste much because you had an awful lot of that asset, the draft picks, in the first place. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Derek, who says, DK, aren't Sid and Gino and Chris Letang supposed to still be here to provide leadership and a transition for the next iteration of this team? If so, with all the trades, moves, and draft picks over the last, let's say even 3 years, is there anyone that you can actually point to, either here or in Wilkes-Barre, where you can confidently say, there they are, they're the future of this franchise? And if not, has there been anything that you can point out over the last 2 to 3 years that gives you hope for the future of this franchise? That's good stuff, man. And it makes me think of a lot of different thoughts that I've had related to the younger phase that the Penguins will have coming up next. Because I don't know that there's a single player or even 2 or 3 players where you circle them and you say, aha, they're the ones, which I think is what you're getting at here. Late last summer, when the Penguins made the trade with Winnipeg to get Rutger McGroarty, there was a very real excitement, not just on the outside, inside. People who I had not heard speaking with enthusiasm about the future of the team for a long, long time had lots of good things to say. And part of that was because McGroarty comes with the deserved reputation of being a leader type. He's very vocal, very intense on and off the ice. He's one of those, Mike Sullivan likes to use the term, drag you into the fight kind of guys. And more important than any of that, he can play. In this later part of the season in Wilkes-Barre, he has played and he has produced. And now, given that team's standing in the AHL, he's going to have a chance to win a Calder Cup, as will Ville Koivunen, as will Owen Pickering, as will Vasily Ponomarev, as will Tristan Brose, as will Sergei Murashov, as will Yoel Blomqvist when he comes back to health. So the better answer to your question, obviously, is going to come in a month or 2. But for now, keeping this real, no, I don't have that outlook. I don't have someone there where I can say, hey, this is the next core of the team, much less of a similar scale to, 2 Hall of Famers and the best defenseman in franchise history. I don't have that. No one does. But if you want to be the way the Red Wings were a few years ago and you say, all right, well, we're losing Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg and Nicholas Lidstrom, but hey, have you seen this Dylan Larkin kid? Actually, I'm going to take that one back. Detroit's not your model here. Just forget I ever said that. Scratch that from the record, Your Honor. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins. I'm heading to Florida tomorrow to cover the Penguins 2 games in Sunrise first against the Stanley Cup champs, and then across Alligator Alley and up 75 to Tampa for the game against the Lightning. So this program will come to you next week from Florida. Let's do it again Monday.